As Farzin Vestugian here with you alongside Robert Zaglinski. Robert, football is back. Sundays are back to normal, aren't they?
Hallelujah.
I don't know if I would actually even call it normal. I think this is an abnormal Sunday. That's normal to us, but not normal to the some of the average people out there.
Well, the average people aren't going to spend the next 5 months of every Sunday watching 10 hours of football or around or close to it. So, yeah, I'd say so.
All right, well, we got a lot to get into, so we're not going to waste any time. Week 1 is in the books, a lot to recap, and then we'll talk about some of the biggest stories, and then also look ahead to Week 2. So much going on. I want to start with New York and Dallas because I have seen bad endings. I've never seen that kind of a bad ending before, where the Giants they told their running back their player not to score, and they go for it on third down with a passing play. Dallas has no timeouts. They basically gave Dallas, 42, 43 seconds, because you have to consider the field goal is going to take a couple seconds when you get it up there. So Dallas basically earned themselves a good amount of time and just enough to get it all the way to the end zone. And quite frankly, New York deserved it, didn't they?
They absolutely deserved it. The thing that I look at is who deserves most of the blame. Do we fault a veteran, possible Hall of Fame coach Tom Coughlin for putting them in that situation? Do we fault a 10-year veteran Eli Manning with 2 Super Bowls? Do we fault the new offensive coordinator Ben McAdoo? What do you think?
Here, I'm going to try to make sense of this, and it's going to sound like I'm defending the Giants and the coaching staff, but I'm not. Here's my thing, though. I love creativity. I really do. When NFL team, and not just NFL teams, college teams, high school teams, when they have it, and I admit this publicly, but Cam Chancellor won this game. I mean, he won. I mean, he did.
This gives him millions of dollars. Yes.
This gives him and his agent leverage. However, from all the reports, and I saw a tweet from Ian Rappaport earlier today, that this loss does not affect Seattle in terms of their negotiations with Cam Chancellor. So that makes you wonder a little bit. Are they trying to hide something, just trying to avoid that? Or are the Seahawks serious when they say, hey, look, we don't care. We don't give a damn. This doesn't change our perspective in any way, or we're going to keep playing football. We're going to get ready for Green Bay. What's your take?
Seattle, I'm with Cam Chancellor. Despite anything not changing their negotiations, I think a lot of things are happening behind closed doors. Listen, he's a very important player to their defense, and for him to be slighted. Listen, NFL players are always distracted by contracts, right? Distracted by their money.
Oh, yeah.
And for every player on Seattle to be paid besides him, I would have a gripe too to not play out my contract unless I got an extension or I got a raise. So from that perspective, Cam Chancellor's in the right, especially in losing this game. I agree probably Ian Rappaport's report, because unless Seattle goes 0-2, which is actually a very distinct possibility, we'll get to that. I think they're willing to play hardball with him for a good while.
Well, look, you mentioned the possibility of going 0-2. You're facing a really great football team in the Packers, so I mean, something's got to be done. It's on the road in prime time, and again, we'll get to our predictions later. But if you go 0-2, I mean, this is a team that has been in the Super Bowl the past 2 years. They have dominated the NFC the past 2 years. There's not a team better than Seattle in all of football. I mean, sure, they didn't win the Super Bowl last year, but they came, just a couple yards close of doing so.
1 yard.
So this is
1 yard.
Oh, yeah, of course, the overtime. You can't forget what happened there. But seriously, though, this is a team that has dominated the league. People are wondering if this is the next New England. Are they going to be able to win multiple Super Bowl rings? Because they have that talent, and if they have Cam Chancellor, their odds go up even more. But if you go 0-2, look, not many teams have gone 0-2 and have won a championship. Seattle is not about making the playoffs. They're about winning the championship. And guess what? Right now, you're last place in your division. I get it's just one game, but there aren't many games in football. Everyone else in the NFC West is 1-0, and you're 0-1. You go 0-2. I think a lot of people are going to start talking about the Arizona Cardinals as a possible threat to win the NFC or the NFC West.
Before we take that nice segue, I don't want to sort of gloss over the fact of Pete Carroll's questionable decision yet again to start overtime with an onside kick. What were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, look, like I said with Tom Coughlin, if it works, we're gonna love him. We're gonna praise him. If possible, we'll have him sit on a throne, and we'll all raise the throne. Call him a genius. This is the thing with sports is these gutsy calls. And by the way, I disagree with it. To answer your question, strongly disagree with it. I agree with onside kicks in the middle of a game unexpectedly, but in situations like that, you've got to be really careful. And that came back obviously to hurt Seattle. And that's just one of those things. Look, kind of like what we said with New York, take the 40 seconds plus the 4 or 5 more seconds for that field goal right there. Do what you can. Don't take a big risk, and just get out there, make the right moves, and put yourself in a better position to win. So, and obviously Seattle didn't do that.
Points in possession are at a premium in the NFL enough as it is, and in overtime where it's almost sudden death for Pete Carroll to put his team on the line, and now 2 straight games. We're not going to bring you up the Super Bowl debacle. This is something to watch if he's going to continue to be so gutsy. I mean, he's never been since his USC days. He's never been one to shy away from creating some kind of controversy or firing up his guys. Anyway,
yeah.
Anyway, moving on. Back to your nice segue. The Cardinals.
Yeah.
With Carson Palmer returning from an ACL tear, I believe his second ACL tear.
Yeah.
Looked like they haven't missed a beat, and he looked extremely healthy, and they look again like the Super Bowl contender they were while he was healthy in 2014.
Yeah, he definitely outplayed Drew Brees. Had 300+ yards, 3 touchdowns, looking really good. And I think Carson Palmer, he's kind of got a chip on his shoulder because look at his pass. He was traded from Cincinnati to Oakland. It didn't really pan out very well. Here he is in Arizona, a team that just hasn't been great. Yeah, they had a couple really good years under Kurt Warner when Kurt Warner was a quarterback, but this team has been desperate for success, and they're getting it right now. Like we kind of said, I mean, look, if Seattle is 0-2, this is the golden opportunity for Arizona to shine and overtake a division that everyone universally gave it to a team in Seattle. So this is Arizona's time to shine. 9-1 last year, and then only to finish 2-4 because of that torn ACL suffered by Palmer, and that led to a first-round exit in the playoffs against a team that was under 500 in Carolina. So this is a team that has the talent. I mean, they're not really superstar loaded. They kind of remind me of the Royals in baseball. I mean, they don't have so much superstar talent, yet they made the World Series with their young guys. And I think Arizona's kind of like that team. Yeah, they've got that veteran leadership in Fitzgerald, who's a great athlete, a great football player. But I think overall, they are a team that, look, even I underestimated, and Carson Palmer is really leading the way for them.
Exactly, and I disagree with the sentiment anyone thinks that they should be in the Seattle shadow. With their overall talented roster, I mean, this team is, as cliche as it sounds, motivated by what they felt was theirs last year after Carson Palmer tore the ACL, and even Drew Stanton being out for the season. They're coming for what's theirs. I mean, Bruce Arians might be in line for Coach of the Year again, and that defense, despite you saying them having no names, that's sort of probably, again, I'm getting really cliche and I hate myself, but that's probably what motivates them.
Yeah, look, I think teams like to be the underdog and to be underestimated like that because, quite frankly, that just means they have secret weapons who can go out there and make a lot of plays. So I think with Arizona, this is a great opportunity. Like I said, again, you're in a place where Seattle isn't really doing too hot. They're struggling more than they are succeeding, especially with the off-the-field issues. And if that turns into a distraction and if that translates into losses, hey, the door's wide open for you. So Arizona is pretty good. Any final thoughts on the Palmer Cardinals topic?
Just keep an eye on them and St. Louis, because Seattle's never had a tougher uphill battle in the NFC. Even in Even when they had to deal with San Francisco, they didn't have two teams chopping at the bit. So
yeah,
I don't want to make it more of a Seattle story, but they could be on the ropes.
Let me say this. San Francisco had a disastrous offseason with all those retirements, Jim Harbaugh leaving, and all that happened, all the stories that came out of the locker room about Jim Harbaugh. But, hey, look, anyone named not Seattle Seahawks, they're 1-0 in the NFC West. So it's going to be a really interesting ride already. Week one, I love week one in football. It's full of surprises. Everyone's already pumped up. And then we see these kinds of scenarios, and it just really creates a lot of fun. So we'll see how things pan out in the NFC West.
To rookie watch, Marcus Mariota dominating, albeit against a pretty mediocre Tampa defense. Jameis Winston doesn't shine against Mariota's team's defense. And guys like Tyler Lockett of the Seahawks shines, as well as Carl Davis of the Ravens, the rookie linebacker, or rather rookie defensive end, grading out very well in run defense. Who? I know we're going to get to Mariota, but who's most impressive to you, other than Mariota, of course?
I'd have to go with Carl Davis. I mean, we touched on Peyton Manning earlier today, but a big reason why Baltimore's defense was so good was Davis went out there for the Ravens and played particularly well, especially against the run. I think this is definitely a guy that they want to have out there more consistently, especially with the absence of Terrell Suggs. You're going to need more guys to step up. He went out there, got a quarterback pressure on Manning, broke up a pass even, finished with 3 tackles. So this is a guy who really made an impact in that game. Now, not enough to win, yes, but you look at that and you try to build off that for Baltimore. And look, there were not a lot of rookies that shined. I was definitely expecting a couple rookies at wide receiver, guys like Dorial Green-Beckham, Devontae Parker, but we really didn't get any of those guys, or at least make any noise. So we're still kind of waiting for guys at that position to unfold. But really, there were only 3 guys that shined among the rookies this past Sunday.
Before we move to there was Lockett, of course, who, despite the losing effort from Seattle, I believe had a punt return touchdown and 50 receiving yards. So everybody's calling him the next John Brown, the talented young receiver from Arizona. I feel that comparison fits. I don't think we can really say much more than that. Before we move to the
I was just going to say, I mean, I've covered Big 12. I covered the Kansas Jayhawks very closely, and I've seen Tyler Lockett play in person a couple of times. The guy's incredibly fast, just great talent, and he can do a lot of damage. The thing about the Big 12 is the Big 12 doesn't have a lot of good defenses, so he was able to go out there and do whatever he wanted. Geno Smith, when he got drafted, and when all the hype was built around him, I wasn't quite confident because his senior year, when West Virginia did move to the Big 12, the Big 12, I mean, he didn't face any good defenses that year in the Big 12. So when he's in the NFL, I feel like all Jets fans got this very misleading preconceived notion that, oh, this guy's going to dominate all the defenses in the NFL. I kind of felt the same way about Tyler Lockett as an offensive player, but special teams wise, he's going to be great for the Seahawks.
You also have to note with Geno that the spread attack, he might not be able to read a defense. But yes, Tyler Lockett probably was the universal sleeper in this year's draft. Looks like Seattle found themselves a gem. Before we move to the two dominating quarterback rookie sensations or lack thereof in Jameis Winston's case, I want to note that I picked the Ravens for the Super Bowl, and as you mentioned, Week 1 being such an interesting case of us not knowing what's going to happen, that doesn't look exactly good right now.
No, I picked the Giants over the Colts, and they both lost this past week.
No, but I picked the Ravens in the Super Bowl. I picked the Ravens to go to the Super Bowl, and that doesn't look that good with Terrell Suggs' injury. So that's just a side note. That's just a side note. So in the Mariota and Winston, we're not going to exactly call it Manning Brady, are we? We're not going to call it this epic clash of the game's best signal callers. But Mariota had himself a day, didn't he?
Yeah, I mean, 13 completions, 209 yards for 4 touchdowns, and I got my butt kicked in fantasy, so I did make a waiver claim on him. So I'll see if I use him as trade bait or not. But no, seriously, this is fun to watch. He's a very likable kid, and we say that so much about rookies, and some of them don't end up keeping that likable attitude. I mean, J.J. Watt's a very likable guy, what he does on and off the field. I hope Mariota can kind of be like J.J. Watt, be a superstar on the field, and then just have that personality off the field. Show everyone that he is the same way. He puts on his jeans the same way as everyone else. Just the kind of guy that kids want to look up to. I think the NFL needs a guy like this, especially with so much negativity that surrounds the league these days. It's fun to see a guy like him. 81% completion percentage, just a really good day overall. And the guy on the other side for the Titans, Jameis Winston, not too hot. And look, I still think it's one game for these rookies, but I think Jameis Winston's going to get in there. He didn't have a horrible day. 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. I think he's going to get rolling eventually, but he's got a lot to learn. Obviously, Mariota, he's steps ahead of where we thought he would be at this point, especially with a lot of rookie quarterbacks too. But I think both are going to go on to have really good careers.
It also, I mean, 1 week is 1 week, right? But it also sort of shows us, at least off of one game, that the scouts or the guys that work at Pro Football Focus or the guys like Matt Miller from Bleacher Report, most have Jameis Winston as more NFL ready, and Marcus Mariota, while being a transcendent talent, sort of struggling to adapt to the NFL game. I don't know. From the on-field perspective, I saw Mariota reading the defense very well, running very complicated, or standard NFL offense, but complicated in terms of what he ran at Oregon, and he looked really poised. He looked like a 6 or 7 year veteran. While on the other side with Jameis Winston, you're saying how I have my doubts. You also have to take in consideration while he has great talent around him, like Mike Evans and Vincent Jackson, you have to consider who his head coach is, and you have to consider who is developing the offense for. Lovie Smith, speaking as a Bears fan, and this isn't me being bitter at all, Chicago had a great defense, rather. Chicago had a great defense, probably with a Hall of Fame middle linebacker, some Pro Bowlers at every level of the defense. But he could never build an offensive line, and he could never build a quarterback. And I fear for Jameis Winston's career in that fashion, because he's clearly a talented kid. He's clearly someone with enough arm strength and all of those intangibles and all that. I mean, you see him winning the BCS national title game on the last drive. You see him being able to deal with the media circus, but Lovie Smith is in charge of him, and that's what scares me.
Well, let me say this. I absolutely agree, and I'm glad you brought up the fact that coaching does play a role in some of these players. I think there are a lot of great, talented football players. They just don't have the careers that they should have because they end up getting drafted by a team with poor coaching, poor game planning, poor preparation, and that drives their careers to the ground. Scouts don't want to risk it because they feel like they're already in that bad mindset. But as far as the coaching goes for Tennessee side with Ken Whisenhunt, he's been a good offensive coordinator over the years. He's coached guys like Ben Roethlisberger over in Pittsburgh, and also 1 year with the San Diego Chargers and Phillip Rivers. So this guy's been around really good quarterbacks, and also worth when he was the head coach of Arizona for the time when Kurt Warner was there, which we referenced to a little bit earlier on the show. This is a guy who knows what he's doing. He knows a good quarterback when he sees one. So I feel like Mariota, I don't know if he's going to follow a path similar to Warner, Roethlisberger, Rivers, all who have had great careers or are having great careers. But these are all guys that I think at some point or another will be highly considered or will get a Hall of Fame nomination and inductee. Mariota, I think, is on that path. Again, it's one game. We don't want to get way too ahead of ourselves. But I think he's on that path, and he's really been prepared well by Ken Whisenhunt. So I think he deserves a lot of credit.
I absolutely agree, and I'm going to put in wait and see on Winston. That again, hot takes, right? But Mariota's on the path. Winston is lost, and that's not his fault at all.
I think he'll get there. I think Winston does have a lot of talent. Tampa Bay has a unique roster. I mean, they've got a lot of young guys and a lot of veteran guys who've been in the league for a long time, and it's just Jameis Winston's got to go in there, control that talent. He's the quarterback. even though he's a rookie, he's going to be viewed as a leader. People are going to treat him like a veteran leader, especially when you're that number one overall guy. Look, these guys were not taken 1 and 2 by accident. These guys were not Heisman winners by accident. I know not every Heisman winner translates into a superstar or pro football Hall of Famer, but look, he'll get there. I think we've got to give it time. Some rookie quarterbacks, they don't get 4 touchdowns in their first game, so I think it's going to be a progress, especially in Tampa Bay.
Moving on to the joke of the disciplinary division of the NFL. Let's talk about the incidents that happened this past week and then related to one of the favorite past offseason topics. Aldon Smith signed with the Raiders with no discipline off of his 3rd DUI, and he played for Oakland on Sunday in their blowout loss to the Bengals. Adam Jones, who plays for the Bengals, in that Bengal beatdown, tried to hurt Amari Cooper severely. Did he use his helmet to throw against his head? I'm not sure. I don't remember exactly.
It kind of took off his helmet too.
Somehow did not get ejected and hasn't been fined in any fashion, I believe, to this point. And then
he said he got a fine. I think it was a $35,000 fine. I think that's what he told the media. I mean, he kind of mocked the media, said, "Oh, you want to ask about it? Here it is. I got a $35K fine." And he's going to appeal it. I'll double check on that right now as you continue. But I saw a tweet about that somewhere.
And this is the same guy who was involved in a Vegas shooting incident, pulled over multiple times for speeding overnight in his career. I mean, he has a lengthy history. This is a guy that's been in Roger Goodell's doghouse, or so to speak. Then you have Ndamukong Suh, who obviously has his own history in attacking players maliciously after the play, quarterbacks, linemen, kicking Alfred Morris in the same way he did to Aaron Rodgers and others in the past. The big beef comes through in none of these players got any significant discipline, while the NFL conducted such a thorough witch hunt for one of its future first ballot Hall of Famers who probably deflated a ball, maybe deflated a ball. Thoughts?
I mean, the NFL is really on Tom Brady's case. They even had this poster for the 2015 season. They have all these quarterbacks. They have Rodgers, Manning, Palmer, Breeze, Rivers, so many different quarterbacks on this poster, not Tom Brady. I mean, you can sense the troll factor in that, okay? I mean, it's to that point, and I get it. There's so much bad blood between Goodell and Kraft. It's unbelievable. Look, if there was cheating involved, fine, investigate it, because I think that I don't care if it's Aaron Balls, Spygate, or whatever. If there's cheating involved, something needs to be done about it. But until there's proof of it, I don't know why the NFL is making it their primary goal to make things hell for the Patriots and Tom Brady, because quite honestly, I think there are other matters in this league that really need to be addressed far more than Brady allegedly deflating a football. I mean, look, I really wish they gave Greg Hardy this kind of treatment or something. The fact that Greg Hardy at one point did have the same amount of suspensions for this season as Tom Brady during the offseason, it baffled me. I was flabbergasted. I mean, in what world does hitting women, you and I discussed this before, does abuse compare equally to deflating a football? It doesn't. So I don't know what the NFL's prerogative is with suspensions and how they handle bad action. I mean, they gave him the $35,000 fine for Jones, who, by the way, said he's not going to change his style, which is interesting. But what is the NFL trying to do? I mean, I get Tom Brady's a superstar, but can we treat everyone equally and hand out suspensions and fines, deservedly so?
I don't think the NFL will ever do that, at least under Roger Goodell's stead, because, quite frankly, I mean, the NFL, I mean, we would both be in agreement that the Patriots are the NFL's marquee franchise or most recognizable franchise at the moment.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So if they are ever perceived publicly to have sort of gotten away with something, as they did maybe with Spygate or maybe with taping the Rams practices before Super Bowl 31 or Super Bowl 30, I believe. Super Bowl 29. I'm not sure the number, obviously, but it's before that Super Bowl they had with the Rams.
Around that time.
It really doesn't matter. That's all contextual. If they have that perspective where the public thinks that they can be undermined, they're gonna try to protect their business for some reason, for some kind of PR perspective, while ignoring all these domestic violence issues or ignoring actual on-field safety issues, while they have this whole concussion storm and overall cover-up scandal shrouding the entire league. I love this PR department. It's probably the best in sports. It's probably the best, easily.
I don't know what the solution is, because so many people are talking about boycotting the NFL and not watching. Look, we love our football. We love the NFL. We just don't like the people at the league office. We don't like the people who are running the show. I just think there's the NFL has they have the best business in the world right in front of them. Every single business in America wants to promote their business within the NFL. I mean, they do. Look at all these commercials, how entertaining they are, especially in the Super Bowl. I mean, that's how highly people think of the NFL. Fans are wanting businesses not to do that. They're wanting to send a message to the NFL. Guess what? That's not going to happen. So this evil empire that's led by Goodell, it's going to continue until Goodell steps down. Now, obviously, the owners are voting and having this discussion about with Goodell having a lesser role in these kinds of situations. I don't know if that's going to be the solution or not. But as of right now, the commissioner, I think he's got the best business in the world, and he's not doing a good job of representing the league. Look, we all love our football. Like I said, we love watching these games, but we all know in the back of our heads, the NFL, there are so many issues there. And the fact that Goodell focuses so much on possibly on a guy who possibly deflated a football, it's pretty annoying.
Before we move on to our rebound session with the Seahawks, Steelers, and Colts, I'll pose you one final question about Goodell. Does he have too much power as the NFL's strict general of discipline, or so to speak? Does he need to be removed from that? Does there need to be some kind of more streamlined disciplinary process that takes into account everything? Does he not need to? Does he even have to have a say in it?
You know, I mean, obviously, it's not just Goodell. You have to have a cabinet. You have to have a team that helps you in these decision making. I mean, look, there's a reason why it's not just a head coach and 53 football players. The head coach needs coordinators and position coaches. For Goodell, I mean, look, this is a guy who stepped in 2006. That's when he began his role as the commissioner of the league. And it hasn't, I mean, Goodell, the commissioners are not really popular. Look at David Stern and all the things that happen with him in the NBA. And then you get Silver, who does that move, suspending, and I don't remember the guy's name from the Clippers.
Donald Sterling.
Yeah, Donald Sterling. Yes. Thank you. He wins over. I've never seen a commissioner get that much love before. For Goodell, he hasn't been hated this much the entire time. I think there was a point in time where Goodell was doing the right thing. I mean, he was doing his job correctly. But then the past couple of years, especially more so with Brady, but then with all these excessive fines because of the way players are hitting, I think he does have too much power. I have to answer yes to that. And I think either Goodell needs to accept a lesser role, or I think the owners need to meet, and it's not going to happen during the season. It has to be during the offseason, so that's going to be a while away. But we're going to need to comprehend, try to meet in the middle and say, look, what is it that this league wants to accomplish? How do we want to go about some of these bad actions from players? Because not all of them are the same. Some are worse than others. It doesn't look like the NFL is in uniform with the rest of the league, and it's gotta change, because, like I said, this is the best sport and the best business in the world. Let's not do something to look. Like I said, we love our football, but it can be driven to the ground if this keeps up at some point. So let's meet together. Let's build a bridge and try to figure out what we can do to save this league and keep its popularity and have a positive publicity too.
Muses and advice from Farzin. I'll leave on. I'll leave the Goodell topic on this note. Goodell is the rare commissioner that manages to make Gary Bettman, the NHL commissioner, good. A commissioner who's presided over 2 lockouts and who has booed at every Stanley Cup celebration. So keep that in mind. Keep that in mind.
What were they chanting in Foxborough? Did they chanted? Weren't they saying "Where is Goodell" or something?
Or "Where is Roger"? Because he said
"Where's Roger?"
Yeah, normally the commissioner's there for banner nights. I mean, most commissioners for each of the sports, like champions, opening nights, right, are there for banner night. But he said he couldn't be there, so he's going to be in Green Bay and Chicago. He made some kind of excuse. Yeah.
When someone of high authority is being discussed too much, like Goodell, it's a bad thing. I mean, we're not really supposed to be talking about Goodell so much. I mean, it just brings the sport a bad name. So what else can you say?
We'll move on. We'll move on to the Seahawks, the Steelers, and the Colts, 3 supposed Super Bowl contenders. I saw, Farzin, that you picked the Steelers as your AFC representative to play the Seahawks, actually. So actually both of your Super Bowl teams, as well as the Colts. So, for some reason, this dark.
Let me say this. Let me say this quickly. When I posted on the NCB predictions, that was during the preseason. Mine, I posted on my website my other prediction. They've changed, but yes, I have thought highly of the Steelers, and even they have done bad. Yes.
And for some reason,
thanks for reminding me.
You're welcome. You're welcome. For some reason, the Colts also looked at as this dark horse AFC contender, even though they haven't fixed any of the problems that plagues them against New England. I'll take one team and you take another. And as far as someone who can positively rebound, and then we'll both talk about a team we don't think is on the right track, even if it's 1 week. We'll keep this brief. I don't like the look of the Colts. From that perspective, I don't see why people think they're a Super Bowl contender. I think it's a lot of Andrew Luck and the Luckettes show. I think people see Andre Johnson, he's 33, 34 years old, an over-the-hill receiver, a 32-year-old running back, and Frank Gore, and for some reason that makes them a Super Bowl contender, even if their conference and division is mediocre. They haven't fixed their front 7 issues. Their offensive line is still a turnstile. So how are they going to defend New England, who still has a prominent running game? How are they going to defend probably maybe even a team like the Chiefs now, who's even better? I think the Colts really probably can coast by and win their division. But as far as any of these high expectations that I'm seeing from them, I don't see it.
See, I disagree. I think the Colts are going to rebound. You said they would win the division, which I do. I obviously agree with, but I think the Colts are going to rebound. I think this is one of those cases where, look, you're in a division with the Jaguars and the Texans. The Texans, as great as that defense is, they don't have an offense. They already announced Ryan Mallett as the quarterback for this Sunday or this weekend. So we're not quite sure where that team's going in terms of its success. I mean, can Ryan Mallett lead them? Who knows? But the Titans are 1-0 in that division right now. They're the only 1-0 team. And I think even then, because of their inexperience, look, Mariota's going to have some bad games this year. He's a rookie. It's going to happen to him. The thing about the Colts is that Andrew Luck, as long as you have Andrew Luck, who, by the way, is the best perfect replacement for Peyton Manning. So yes, I think the Colts are going to get back on track. I think Andrew Luck's going to get that team back to where it is. Seeing that this team score only 2 touchdowns, very uncharacteristic. I think this could have happened in the middle of the season, and I would have thought the same way about the Colts. I think the Colts are going to rebound.
For me, it's not more about them rebounding. They're obviously still going to win 10 or 11 games. For me, the perspective with them is that they have higher goals. They seem to have this Super Bowl aura about them that they feel about themselves that I don't really feel is warranted at all. I don't see it. I still think they need to build up their offensive line and their front 7 a little bit more. But that's just me. As far as a team that you don't think of, those 3 that you don't think highly of, I mean, they might all still rebound. But the team you least think highly of, who would that be? I'm
kind of nervous for the Saints. I mean, look, they're a team led by Drew Brees. They won the Super Bowl just a few years ago, back in the 2010 season against the Colts. This is a team that has some talent as well. Last year, I was shocked to see New Orleans finish below 5. If you told me Atlanta, Carolina, and Tampa Bay would all finish 500, I would have said the Saints would have ran away with this division. No way they do not win this division. So the fact that they couldn't even capture the NFC South last year was a shocker to me. I'm not too hot on New Orleans right now. And then going back to our discussion earlier with Seattle, look, to be 0-1 and going into this week against Green Bay, that's not the scenario you want to be in. So I'd be concerned for those two teams.
For me, the team that does rebound, the team that I'm going to stick with them because I'm going to stick with my guns. Baltimore. I mean, I'm obviously not a huge fan of Mark Trestman, given all of the drama he caused in Chicago last season. But I like the makeup of their team. I like their front seven. I like their offensive line. I think Joe Flacco is the AFC's Eli Manning in that if he has a talented supporting cast around him, he can succeed. And even without Suggs, I think that team is still talented enough. I think they're still, more physical, more competitive. They have that mentality, that this aura about them that they're always in games. They're really confident. They're not afraid of the Patriots, who are probably the class of the AFC at this point. I like the Ravens to rebound. I'm not going to fall out of love with them just because of a bad loss and because they lost one of their All-Pro players. They're still a supremely talented and confident bunch.
Yeah, up and down with Baltimore as well because, look, they had that really impressive Super Bowl run where Flacco didn't have an interception, but after that, we haven't seen a dominant Ravens team. And look, I know everyone drew the comparison that Flacco is going to go down to the wire and beat the Broncos again on the road. But, obviously that story didn't repeat. But since then, look, if it wasn't for that collapse in Denver, he doesn't even have a Super Bowl champion. And look, we can say a lot of things about sports, about how if this happened, a team doesn't win a championship. But that's probably one of the luckiest breaks I've seen. And like I said, ever since that run, we haven't seen a prominent Ravens team. So I can see where you're coming from on that Ravens front. It's been a pretty good show for the most part here, and we'll go ahead and advance to our picks. And we'll start off with Thursday Night Football, Denver at Kansas City. Look, Denver had a really bad showing. We kind of just touched on that with Baltimore, and we've alluded to it a couple times. Kansas City looked pretty good against Houston, and I love the Kansas City defense. It's really good. And here's the other thing I think we should consider. It's a hostile crowd at Arrowhead on primetime. If this was a noon CBS game, I don't know if I would feel confident, but I think in a low-scoring affair, Kansas City could get the job done. So I'm picking the Chiefs to take the lead in the AFC West.
Despite all your Chiefs memorabilia in the back, probably maybe skewing your opinion, I absolutely agree with you. The Chiefs were my preseason pick to win the AFC West. I think they're going to run absolutely roughshod over Peyton. Let's get to Houston and Carolina. Houston, who played the Chiefs last week, sort of got off to a really slow. Sort of is an understatement. Down 27-6, I believe. But they fought back valiantly. J.J. Watt did his thing. As to the national media, he's the only player on that roster, if I'm not mistaken. And they're going to play a Carolina team that struggled against the Jaguars, who should be improved but aren't. This feels like one of those J.J. Watt defensive touchdown games, or he's going to score. He's going to line up out at tight end, and they're going to take advantage of an undermanned Carolina squad. I'm going to pick Houston to over Carolina in a blowout.
Yeah, see, I don't know about this. I'm not too sure about Ryan Mallett. He had a couple touchdowns in that game against the Chiefs, but people are wondering, are those garbage touchdowns? Did he really do something in that game? I'm not too sure about that. I think those were garbage touchdowns. I think Carolina is going to have a tough time, especially Cam Newton, going up against J.J. Watt. He's got the ability to kind of escape him. I think Carolina has the talent to be able to get through Houston. I think Houston's going to be on the clock for that number 1 pick, so I'm going to go with Carolina in this game.
To San Francisco and Pitt, your thoughts, or Pittsburgh, on your thoughts on that?
Well, look, I had the 49ers losing to the Vikings, and I had the Steelers losing to the Patriots. So I saw this as 2 0-1 teams. Instead, San Francisco's gotten off to the better start. Look, Pittsburgh had a pretty tough opponent in week 1 in the Patriots. It's not an easy task to go in there and win. It's a tall order, especially when you've got Brady and Gronkowski hooking up for so many touchdowns in a short time span. But I think Pittsburgh bounces back this week against the 49ers.
I will agree with you, but it does concern me that how Pittsburgh adjusts their offense without Le'Veon Bell, as he still won't be back till, I believe, week 4. But they're overall more talented. They have the better quarterback. They have Antonio Brown. I don't see an undermanned San Francisco squad, despite how impressive they looked against Minnesota. Everybody looks impressive against Minnesota, having a chance against Pittsburgh. 2, Tampa Bay, New Orleans. Now, I always really, as the NFC South sort of become a JV division in the NFL to me, I sort of dread doing picks or talking about NFC South interdivisional games. I mean, Tampa Bay was blown out by Tennessee. New Orleans was dominated by Arizona. I don't know. This is one of those washy games. I'm going to go the Saints by default because they still have a talented defense that's maybe working out the kinks, and they have Drew Brees, while Jameis Winston's a rookie, and he's going to have to go against that defense. So Saints pretty comfortably. Not a blowout, but pretty comfortably.
I don't know. I have this quarter right here. I really want to use it to decide this game because I don't know who's going to win. I could go heads Tampa Bay, tails New Orleans. I really want to pick New Orleans because they have Drew Brees. They've got so much talent, but this is not the same team that we all think they are. Nonetheless, I am picking New Orleans, not because of what I just said. I think it's going to be a pretty sloppy game. This NFC South, you used a really harsh description there. JV division, wow. But look, it's a tough division to win because the teams are going to be so close. They're all going to be competitive. So in a way, it's still going to be fun to watch because all 4 teams might have a shot going into week 16 and maybe 17. Who knows? But at the end, I'm going to pick New Orleans. Moving on, Detroit against Minnesota in an NFC North battle. I know you're pretty familiar with these teams. Look, I really like Minnesota. I think this is a team that's going to bounce back. They are a lot of people's favorites to bounce back, but because of Adrian Peterson, I'm more so picking them to be a hot team this year because of Teddy Bridgewater. I think he's got a lot of talent, and I think he's going to prove a lot of scouts wrong. And I kind of want to see that happen. I called it earlier in the season. I feel like the Vikings are a 3 seed in the NFC. I'm going to go with the Vikings. I really think they're going to be doing a lot of moves this year. I think they're going to surprise a lot of teams, and I want to see that prediction come through. So I'm going to go with Minnesota over Detroit. Hold
on, a 3 seed, so they're going to win the NFC North?
That's my surprise, yeah.
They're gonna win the NFC North over Green Bay.
Yeah, I'm not saying Green Bay's not going to win, though.
Okay, all right.
I'm not, sorry, let me rephrase. I'm not saying Green Bay's not going to make it to the playoffs is what I meant to say.
Okay, well, I completely disagree on that. Teddy Bridgewater.
Surprise picks. We've got to pick surprise picks.
Okay, so we do. All right, that I respect that. I don't know. Teddy Bridgewater concerns me. I don't think he's that good of an NFL prospect. Everyone's hyping him up to be. And, I mean, they were physically dominated by an undermanned San Francisco squad. Detroit, despite losing Sue and despite losing Ndamukong Suh and Nick Fairley, I mean, while they were pretty much run over by San Diego, they still have a pretty formidable defensive front that can harass Bridgewater. I don't necessarily think Detroit's a playoff team, but I don't think Minnesota's a playoff team either. They still have a ways to go. I'm going to pick Detroit based off the strength of who they still have left, like guys like Stephen Tulloch, DeAndre Levy, Ziggy Ansah. Detroit in a close one. To Arizona and Chicago. This one hits home. We had your Chiefs. We had my Bears. Despite Aaron Rodgers sort of doing what he does, throwing balls where only his receivers can catch it, and just overall, taking the game out at the end and breaking my heart, I thought the Bears looked reasonably competitive, more than they should have in Week 1. There's no way I'm picking them against the Cardinals because I think the Cardinals are one of the most complete teams in the league. But it'll be closer than people think. It's only Week 1, but something's got to give. We have the NFL's best rushing defense in Arizona and the NFL's second best rushing offense. So I guess off of one game we can use that kind of stat. Arizona will win, but I think people will be surprised by how well the Bears stick into it.
Yeah, look, the Bears have a lot of talent. In Cutler, it's just so much is made out of the QB situation in Chicago. But I've got to go with Arizona in this game. I really like Carson Palmer. I'm really done underestimating this Cardinals team. I've got to go with them until they do something to prove to me otherwise. I think this is a team that's gonna march ahead and prove a lot of teams wrong and a lot of people wrong. So I think Arizona is gonna take control of this game. Going to the AFC side of things, New England and Buffalo. I've seen a lot of people pick Buffalo as a possible surprise upset of the week. If I had to pick three key games to watch, this is one of them. I'm really intrigued in this game, especially I think the Rex Ryan factor is huge. He obviously hates the Patriots, but I don't know if Buffalo's going to be able to carry that momentum from last week and bring it over to this week. I think New England is going to handle business in Buffalo.
I absolutely agree. Rex Ryan, he's up to his old tricks. He is riling up his troops. I think the last time they did upset New England in the playoffs when he was head coach of the Jets. But then there was also that last time where his team had a marquee matchup against New England and they lost 45-3 on Monday Night Football. I'm going to lean more towards that latter decision. It won't be a blowout as Buffalo's a pretty talented team. I like the story of Tyrod Taylor. I think they keep it close. But no one takes away what you're good at, and no one attacks what you aren't good at like New England. And New England, for everybody who hates Bill Belichick, he's the best game plan in the league. So everything that frustrated the Colts last week, I have a feeling won't frustrate New England this week. To San Diego and Cincinnati, AFC rivalry, I guess. Can we call it a rivalry? I mean, they've met in the playoffs a few times in their history. They're pretty similar and underachieving teams. The Chargers and the Bengals, I don't know what to make of this game. See, I like Rivers. I like their opening performance. I like Philip Rivers in his opening performance against the Chargers. I like how they sort of eventually just imposed their will on Detroit. But Cincinnati's such an enigma. So I thought they would at least be more challenged by Oakland, but they completely dominated the Raiders. Maybe Derek Carr's injury factored into that. I'll still have to go San Diego based off the strength that Rivers is just in a different class of his own compared to Andy Dalton. But this could be one of those. This is one of my personal games to watch this week. I'm not sure if I'll get it in my market, but it does intrigue me. San Diego wins in a close one.
Yeah, I'm intrigued by this also. I think these are two really good quarterbacks who have something to prove in postseason matches because neither of them have made it very far. Dalton still has yet to win a playoff game, and Philip Rivers, he's been to an AFC title game once, and that was against a team that was looking to go 19-0. So there's a lot to consider in this game. I've got to go with Cincinnati. I think they are just an overall better equipped team. I think they are going to make some strides, and I'm not too sure about San Diego's defense. Maybe they prove me wrong in this game, but until then, I've got to go with the Bengals. Switching over to Tennessee and Cleveland, we've got some interesting young quarterbacks in this matchup here. Johnny Manziel, we don't know what we're going to get from him. A lot's been made about him off the field. Bleacher Report had a nice piece about him, about how he just made too much about it, and now he's the sober guy in parties. But hopefully that helps him have less distractions and play better in football. I don't know. Maybe that was it this week. I've got to go with Tennessee in this one. I really liked what I saw from Mariota. I don't know if Cleveland's defense is going to be ready for this.
I don't think Cleveland's defense is organized enough. I think they're well on their way to having another head coach by the end of the season. I don't like Cleveland's receiving core. I feel sorry for Joe Thomas, and I think the Mariota hype train continues. I'm not sure if he's going to throw 4 touchdown passes in the first half, but he'll be clean. He'll have a clean sheet again. He'll be calm. He'll be composed. They're not. I don't think the Browns, like you said, the Browns defense isn't really going to challenge him. Tennessee. I will also pick Tennessee. Over to Atlanta and New York. Atlanta, a bit of a surprise. Everybody picking the Eagles in that Monday Night Football opener. and Julio Jones sort of basically destroyed any sentiments of that. The Giants are in the wake of their collapse against the Cowboys. This is another tough one. I'm going to have to go with the Falcons, as I don't think anyone's going to really have an answer for Julio Jones here in the early goings. Both teams really have pretty mediocre defenses, so to me, a guy like Julio Jones is the perfect difference maker that ultimately swings the game one way or another.
Odell Beckham Jr. had a hot rookie season. Didn't look too hot against the Cowboys, however. I don't know if I'm ready to give up on Eli Manning and Beckham Jr. On paper, looks great. Manning really did bounce back last year after a horrible 2013 season. So I'm not quite sure what to make of this game. I'm not quite ready to hop on this Atlanta bandwagon yet. So I've got to go with the Giants. I think Manning and Beckham Jr., they're going to lead the charge and go to town on this Atlanta defense and do pretty well.
You're a brave man.
Let's go to St. Louis and Washington. And I think these are two teams that probably would have finished near the bottom of the league. St. Louis had a nice victory to start off the season, even though they struggled immensely on special teams and on defense, allowing more than 30 points, but still got the job done with a win. In Washington, well, they're in disarray. There's a lot going on in Washington. I think St. Louis is going to keep going. They're going to go 2-0, which is going to be really shocking to see, but Washington is just not that good at all.
Washington, I agree, will be in contention for the number one overall pick in next year's draft. I love St. Louis. I love St. Louis's front. I think they have the best defensive line in football. Aaron Donald is a monster, the reigning defensive rookie of the year. I think Nick Foles, while not exactly a superstar quarterback, maybe not even an average quarterback, is an excellent game manager for that defense. I'm going to go Rams, and Kirk Cousins is not going to have fun. Is not going to have fun on Sunday. Over to Miami and Jacksonville. Now, the Dolphins people have looked at as one of those AFC dark horses based off if Ryan Tannehill can sort of ascend. I don't buy it. And that's why I'm going to pick Jacksonville. I think Blake Bortles, while still developing and still pretty raw, I like what they did in the offseason. I'm not in love with the Dolphins. I noted their struggles against the Redskins. I'm not sure how they remedy that. The Dolphins are a very top-heavy team. Tannehill may struggle against Jacksonville's monstrous defensive front. I don't think anyone's ever really said that. Blake Bortles has himself at least some kind of a day. Jacksonville over Miami.
I'm going to go with the Dolphins in this one. I don't know if I'm ready to pick the Jaguars. I actually have them winning the number one overall pick. I think they're going to get that this year. So not too hot on this team, so I'm going to go with Miami. Going to the home stretch, another NFC East battle for the Cowboys. They'll visit the Eagles. Cowboys, yeah, sure, had a lucky win, but you'll take them any way you can. The Eagles, kind of interesting. Look, a lot was mentioned this season about Chip Kelly and the way he handled the personnel, trying to begin bringing all the Oregon guys there. He even tried to get Mariota at one point, but it's so far not working out for Chip Kelly. And I think if you're going to make bold moves like that, you better be right, or you're going to get criticized for it. Dallas, I like the Cowboys in this one. I like DeMarco Murray too, especially with what he did for Dallas, but I don't know if I like him under Chip Kelly's offense. It's just not going too well for Chip Kelly and the Eagles right now. I think the Cowboys are going to pound on that even more.
I like Dallas as well. I just like to say that, can we end this Tony Romo choking meme that he can't succeed in the fourth quarter? Or he's going to throw some kind of disastrous interception or turn the ball over. The man is one of the best quarterbacks in the league. While he's really
improved. He's really improved lately.
He's stabilized. I saw the stat. Multiple outlets posted it where he has the most fourth quarter comebacks in the league since his time in the league. I mean, they've given him a stable offensive line, and he seems pretty good. He seems like he's found his way. Over to Baltimore and Oakland. As I mentioned earlier, I like the Ravens. I like them to rebound. They're playing a bad team. It goes without saying the Raiders are still a bad team. I think that the Ravens defensive front. I think C.J. Mosley. I think guys like Jimmy Smith and Lardarius Webb in the back end have fun with Derek Carr, taking the ball away from him. I like the Ravens big. If the Bengals can blow out the Raiders, then so can the Ravens, despite all of their instability.
I've got to go with Baltimore. I think Oakland will make strides this year. They've got to have Derek Carr to do it, though, and hopefully he can stay healthy for them. Because I think Oakland has a lot of talent. I think they're going to finally look. That franchise has been a disaster since that Super Bowl loss to Tampa Bay, and that was more than a decade ago. I think Oakland is going to finally start making strides into the right direction. I think in the second half of this season, we're going to see a much different Raiders team. But for now, I think a lot of those young guys are still developing. So I'm going to go with the Ravens in this one.
To the Colts and Jets, Farzine?
Well, first we got to go to Seattle and Green Bay because that's going to be on Sunday night. The Colts and Jets will be on Monday night.
I apologize. Seattle and Green Bay, in my mind, the game of the week. Would you disagree?
Yeah, that's my number one game this week.
Rematch of the NFC title game. I'm sure NBC will broadcast Brandon Bostic's botched onside kick probably 1,000 times over the course of the broadcast. I don't know. Seattle is missing Cam Chancellor. Their offensive line, their young offensive line, is still sort of developing. Their overall, they don't seem to have their mojo. They don't normally do in the beginning openings of the season. I think Green Bay sort of has this revenge factor in their mind. I think Aaron Rodgers is healthy. I think he sort of wants to remedy that missed opportunity they had last January. I hate the Packers as a Bears fan, but I will never knock them for what they are. They are a great team. They have the best quarterback in the game. They're playing at home. And at least for now, I don't know what happens in January if these two teams meet, but at least for now, Green Bay gets revenge over Seattle.
Yeah, I think Green Bay is going to get revenge as well. Yeah, that was a really tough way to go out in the season when you're one game away from the Super Bowl. But Seattle, I think this is going to be a high-scoring game. But Green Bay is going to go with a win here. And Seattle is going to leave 0-2. And I think that just makes the whole Cam Chancellor twist so much more interesting. I don't know how it's going to end, but it's definitely going to spew a lot more stories in the paper. If you're going to listen to sports radio talk in Seattle, it's going to be the number one discussed topic there. And it's going to throw a really interesting pitch over at Seattle. I think the media and Pete Carroll this week in the press conferences, that'll be interesting to watch as well. Final game of the week, Monday night, Indianapolis visiting the Jets. I said it earlier, I think the Colts are going to rebound, so I'll just put it right now. I think definitely we're going to see a different Andrew Luck this week and a different Colts team compared to last Sunday.
Despite how the Jets looked against the Browns, I will have to agree. Luck is still Andrew Luck. He's still got some weapons there. Andre Johnson may be a little over the hill, but there's still T.Y. Hilton. I don't expect Andre Johnson to be that bad as he was last week. Colts in a romp over the Jets on Monday night.
There you have it. Our picks for the week. What's your big game of the week? I think we both agree it's Seattle and Green Bay.
Mm-hmm. I agree. That's probably the two best teams in the NFC.
Yeah.
Even if we're 1 week in and Seattle could possibly be 0-2, these are the two most talented, cohesive, together teams that have been together for a while and succeeded together for a while in the NFC. They go any other game in the NFL that I would like this week. Other than that, I can't see it. Maybe Dallas and Philadelphia. Those are always fun games. New England and Buffalo. You mentioned that being a dark horse sleeper. There's a lot of games that you wouldn't look as marquee other than Seattle and Green Bay this week that could be intriguing, that could turn into classics, or so to speak. Week 2, 2015 should be a fun one.
Yeah, look, I like the way the week's starting with Denver and Kansas City. I think one of those teams obviously advanced to 2-0. Detroit, Minnesota, I personally am intrigued by that one. We touched on New England, Buffalo. I'm kind of intrigued with that one as well. Rex Ryan is just an interesting story anytime, especially that he's staying in the AFC East. And then that Sunday night match, Seattle is interesting. I mean, like we said earlier, this has been the most dominant NFL team the past 2 years, and we might be seeing I don't want to say the start of the end, maybe just a really shockingly bad season. So we'll see how it goes.
And that should just about do it for this week's No Coast Bias NFL Weekly Podcast. That was our recap and sort of preview of Week 1 and Week 2. We'll be back next week. There's a new feature. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you listeners. For Farzin Basajian and and myself, Robert Zaglinski, hope you have a good one. Enjoy the games and sit back and relax.
They're going to go 2-0, which is going to be really shocking to see, but Washington is just not that good at all.
Washington, I agree, will be in contention for the number one overall pick in next year's draft. I love St. Louis. I love St. Louis's front. I think they have the best defensive line in football. Aaron Donald is a monster, the reigning defensive rookie of the year. I think Nick Foles, while not exactly a superstar quarterback, maybe not even an average quarterback, is an excellent game manager for that defense. I'm going to go Rams. And Kirk Cousins is not going to have fun. Is not going to have fun on Sunday. Over to Miami and Jacksonville. Now the Dolphins, people have looked at as one of those AFC dark horses based off if Ryan Tannehill can sort of ascend. I don't buy it, and that's why I'm going to pick Jacksonville. I think Blake Bortles, while still developing and still pretty raw. I like what they did in the offseason. I'm not in love with the Dolphins. I noted their struggles against the Redskins. I'm not sure how they remedy that. The Dolphins are a very top-heavy team. Tannehill may struggle against Jacksonville's monstrous defensive front. I don't think anyone's ever really said that. Blake Bortles has himself at least some kind of a day. Jacksonville over Miami.
I'm going to go with the Dolphins in this one. I don't know if I'm ready to pick the Jaguars. I actually have them winning the number one overall pick. I think they're going to get that this year. So not too hot on this team, so I'm going to go with Miami. Going to the home stretch, another NFC East battle for the Cowboys that will visit the Eagles. Cowboys, yeah, sure, had a lucky win, but you'll take them any way you can. The Eagles, kind of interesting. Look, a lot was mentioned this season about Chip Kelly and the way he handled the personnel, trying to begin bringing all the Oregon guys there. He even tried to get Mariota at one point, but it's so far not working out for Chip Kelly. And I think if you're going to make bold moves like that, you better be right, or you're going to get criticized for it. Dallas, I like the Cowboys in this one. I like DeMarco Murray too, especially with what he did for Dallas, but I don't know if I like him under Chip Kelly's offense. It's just not going too well for Chip Kelly and the Eagles right now. I think the Cowboys are going to pound on that even more.
I like Dallas as well. I just like to say that, can we end this Tony Romo choking meme that he can't succeed in the fourth quarter, or he's going to throw some kind of disastrous interception or turn the ball over? The man is one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Well, he's
really improved. He's really improved lately.
He's stabilized. I saw the stat. Multiple outlets posted it where he has the most fourth quarter comebacks in the league since his time in the league. I mean, they've given him a stable offensive line, and he seems pretty good. He seems like he's found his way. Over to Baltimore and Oakland. As I mentioned earlier, I like the Ravens. I like them to rebound. They're playing a bad team. It goes without saying the Raiders are still a bad team. I think that the Ravens' defensive front, I think C.J. Mosley, I think guys like Jimmy Smith and Lardarius Webb in the back end have fun with Derek Carr. taking the ball away from him. I like the Ravens big. If the Bengals can blow out the Raiders, then so can the Ravens, despite all of their instability.
I've got to go with Baltimore. I think Oakland will make strides this year. They've got to have Derek Carr to do it, though, and hopefully he can stay healthy for them. Because I think Oakland has a lot of talent. I think they're going to finally look. That franchise has been a disaster since that Super Bowl loss to Tampa Bay, and that was more than a decade ago. I think Oakland is going to finally start making strides into the right direction. I think in the second half of this season, we're going to see a much different Raiders team. But for now, I think a lot of those young guys are still developing. So I'm going to go with the Ravens in this one.
To the Colts and Jets, Farzine?
Well, first we got to go to Seattle and Green Bay because that's going to be on Sunday night. The Colts and Jets will be on Monday night.
I apologize. I apologize. Seattle and Green Bay, in my mind, the game of the week. Would you disagree?
Yeah, that's my number one game this week.
Rematch of the NFC title game. A game. I'm sure NBC will broadcast Brandon Bostic's botched onside kick probably 1,000 times over the course of the broadcast. I don't know. Seattle is missing Cam Chancellor. Their offensive line, their young offensive line, is still sort of developing. Their overall, they don't seem to have their mojo. They don't normally do in the beginning openings of the season. I think Green Bay sort of has this revenge factor in their mind. I think Aaron Rodgers is healthy. I think he sort of wants to remedy that missed opportunity they had last January. I hate the Packers as a Bears fan, but I will never knock them for what they are. They are a great team. They have the best quarterback in the game. They're playing at home. And at least for now, I don't know what happens in January if these two teams meet, but at least for now, Green Bay gets revenge over Seattle.
Yeah, I think Green Bay is going to get revenge as well. Yeah, that was a really tough way to go out in the season when you're one game away from the Super Bowl. But Seattle, I think this is going to be a high-scoring game. But Green Bay is going to go with a win here. And Seattle is going to leave 0-2. And I think that just makes the whole Cam Chancellor twist so much more interesting. I don't know how it's going to end, but it's definitely going to spew a lot more stories in the paper. If you're going to listen to sports radio talk in Seattle, it's going to be the number one discussed topic there. And it's going to throw a really interesting pitch over at Seattle. I think the media and Pete Carroll this week in the press conferences, that'll be interesting to watch as well. Final game of the week, Monday night, Indianapolis visiting the Jets. I said it earlier, I think the Colts are going to rebound, so I'll just put it right now. I think definitely we're going to see a different Andrew Luck this week and a different Colts team compared to last Sunday.
Despite how the Jets looked against the Browns, I will have to agree. Luck is still Andrew Luck. He's still got some weapons there. Andre Johnson maybe a little over the hill, but there's still T.Y. Hilton. I don't expect Andre Johnson to be that bad as he was last week. Colts in a romp over the Jets on Monday night.
There you have it. Our picks for the week. What's your big game of the week? I think we both agree it's Seattle and Green Bay.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I mean that's probably the two best teams in the NFC.
Yeah.
Even if we're 1 week in and Seattle could possibly be 0-2, these are the two most talented, cohesive, together teams that have been together for a while and succeeded together for a while in the NFC. So I mean, they go any other game in the NFL that I would like this week. Other than that, I can't see it. Maybe Dallas and Philadelphia. Those are always fun games. New England and Buffalo. You mentioned that being a dark horse sleeper. There's a lot of games that you wouldn't look as marquee other than Seattle and Green Bay this week that could be intriguing, that could turn into classics, or so to speak. Week 2, 2015 should be a fun one.
Yeah, look, I like the way the week's starting with Denver and Kansas City. I think one of those teams obviously advanced to 2-0. Detroit, Minnesota, I personally am intrigued by that one. We touched on New England, Buffalo. I'm kind of intrigued with that one as well. Rex Ryan is just an interesting story anytime, especially that he's staying in the AFC East. And then that Sunday night match, Seattle is interesting. I mean, like we said earlier, this has been the most dominant NFL team the past 2 years, and we might be seeing, I don't want to say the start of the end, maybe just a really shockingly bad season. So we'll see how it goes.
And that should just about do it for this week's No Coast Bias NFL Weekly Podcast. That was our recap and sort of preview of Week 1 and Week 2. We'll be back next week. There's a new feature. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you listeners. For Farzin Basajian and Robert and myself, Robert Zaglinski, hope you have a good one. Enjoy the games and sit back and relax.